Welcome to episode 46 of the Relationship Marketing Podcast with Cody B. Today's guest is Kordell Norton. Kordell Norton, a former senior executive with several multi-billion-dollar companies, is now known as America's Charisma Consultant. He is the author of 6 books and is an adjunct faculty to more than 17 universities. He is also a contributor to many national publications as well as trade and industry magazines. Kordell works with clients internationally for sales training, customer service, strategic planning, and leadership. His message is about helping you engage others in deep and profound ways. His highly interactive style is entertaining, humorous, and jam-packed with great information. A certified speaking professional member of the National Speakers Association and a member of the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And now, Cody B.
Hello, everybody. This is Cody Bateman. Welcome to a brand new episode of our Relationship Marketing Podcast. Super excited for our guest that we have on today. Before we introduce him, I'd just like to do a shout out to all of our viewers, all of our listeners. Thank you so much for your contributions and for your interest in this topic called relationship marketing, how important it is in our society today, in our business society. And it's just amazing the stories that come in every single week on people that are nurturing genuine relationship in their business and what that actually means. And it's just an inspiration. And it's in the world that we live in today, we need this more than ever. Not only for our business practice, but just for practice in general. You know, we need to be a kinder, gentler society. And this is one way that we can do it. We spend most of our waking moments in our professions, doing our business. And if we can have a philosophy that drives the way we do business, that helps us be kind to other human beings, I think that's a good thing. And that's what this is all about. And let me tell you, I've got a guest on today that, boy, he is no stranger to this subject. He's been doing this for a long time. Mr. Kordell Norton, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I know you're very busy and you're out there doing the good cause, my friend. You're out there making things happen and teaching people. I like to call it assessment cells. I think you call it a lot of different things, but you're really a strong advocate of finding out what the true needs of a prospect is, a current customer might be, and be in the spirit of service to people at all times. Release on the outcome, release on the close, if you will, or what you might gain out of it. Put your efforts on the service part of it. And you're such a great advocate of that. I mean, you got stuff like spontaneous combustion. I've been reading through this, a lot of cool stuff. I mean, there's so many questions that could be asked there. You got this, the tips, 7 catalysts of sales and leadership. You got 7 books, I think you've written. The latest, The Business Charisma. It's available on Amazon. Can you put that up for all of us on YouTube? Can you hold that up? I don't have a copy of it with me, but I want you to hold up that latest book, Business Charisma. You can find that on Amazon and look that up and get a copy of that book. So that's a great place to start. You're holding up the book, Business Charisma. You're known, by the way, as the Charisma Consultant. I didn't know you could be a charisma consultant. How do you consult on charisma? I mean, let's start there. How do you consult somebody else on how to have charisma?
Well, we've gone through a massive change in business over the last 100 years. You go back 100 years ago, and we took the eggs to market and traded those for shoes for our kids. And so we were in a commodities market. Birthday cake cost 10 cents. Because you milked the cow, you grew the grain, and by the 1950s, we had packaged those commodities, and we had this world of Betty Crocker cakes. And now that 10-cent birthday cake was $1, but we were selling on 3 TV networks and the local TV. We were selling goods. 1995, we changed to a services-based economy. Now that cake you stop at the local grocery store, it's $10 on the way home. Well, 2005, we had morphed to experiences and the customer experience. And now you go to Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza and you pay $100 and the cake is free, but we get the customer experience. Well, customer experience isn't enough anymore. My corporate clients would say, what's the future, Kordell? Because I want to get there before the hockey puck gets there. What's the future? And so we did quite a bit of research, and we came up with a list of 43 qualities that people said were they're magnetic. The term that came up, these organizations, these people are charismatic. And it's all about this relationship. People no longer go to the dentist, they go to my dentist. They no longer go to get coffee, they go to my Starbucks. So when people replace whatever the business is with the word my, then we know that we're in a relationship that is akin to the women who tell me, hey, Kordell, when I need to get my hair cut, I fly home because that's the only person I trust with my hair. And so they fly home to get their haircuts. That's a relationship. When somebody would fly to my service provider to get what I want. And that's the world we're in. We're in a dialogue economy. Where people require feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because as you tell that story and you share that, I think about all of the my's. This is my mechanic. This is my. I mean, I say that all the time. Hey, I've got a guy. I've got a guy that can help you. He's my guy. She's my lady that can help you with something, whatever that business is, and you kind of have to have that today, I think, right? I mean, I think gone are the days, like you said, gone are the days where we talk a lot about this with a lot of our guests. It's the days of transactional. The transactional sell is kind of dying out to the relationship sell. And but how do I become the guy? Like what do I need to do? I'm in the relationship marketing business. So if anybody in the world wants to know or learn how they can create better relationships with their client base, how they can follow up with their customers better, I want people to say, hey, I got a guy, and that's me, Cody. So how do I, like what kind of things do you recommend people do consistently to be the guy?
Well, so I made some notations on that. So one, here's a thought for your audience to consider. There was a fellow in West Michigan, and he did some research on how does a teacher make an impact on their students. And as he studied that, he found out that only 20% of the impact that a teacher has on their students occur when the students are in front of the teacher. But he also determined that 40% occurs before the student gets there and 40% after. Well, so I thought, well, that's brilliant, because that weighs into marketing. It weighs into customer acquiring customers. And so I call those the bookshelves, the 40% before and the 40% afterwards, because that's where send out cards really plays. You play in the 40s, and the person may be in front of a client, in front of a friend, a family, but it's the days after when a card arrives in the mail and they say, oh yeah, I remember that. That was an incredible experience. Well, so one of the first things you do is you say, hey, listen, you need to be competent when you're in front of the client, but we really need to think about post and pre connecting with the customer.
Boy, I love that. The key is the tee up. It's kind of like, we had an announcer that came on before you and I started talking, and they, shared who you are. They shared your bio. They shared some of your accomplishments. And so prior to you saying a single word or me asking a single question, our audience already knows a little bit about you. So that's what you mean kind of by the pre. It's like teeing up a good speaker. If I'm doing an event, half of the battle of a speaker delivering his message is how he or she is teed up. they're teed up the proper way and get the proper credibility when they start. So I think that's what you mean by pre and post. I love that 40 and 40. What's that hat you got going there?
Well, so for example, your clients go your customers all the time go to Five Guys hamburgers. And when you go to Five Guys, before you even go to Five Guys, you take a friend and you say, hey, I'm going to Five Guys. Does anybody want to come? Oh, because you know that Five Guys has got French fries. You don't go to Five Guys without French fries. So you walk into Five Guys and the first thing you see is peanuts. Because before the 20%, Five Guys starts you, and even before you get there, they start feeding you. And so they give you the peanuts. You got to get the peanuts. You go up and you get your hamburger, and then you go sit down and eat the peanuts. While you're sitting at Five Guys, they are brilliant at this. They, right now, if I said, hey, I want to tell you about send out for cards, or let me give you some materials on send out for cards, that marketing pitch has a 14% credibility factor. Basically, 1 in 10 people say, okay, I'll hear this message. But if somebody else says, hey, you got to do the send out cards, this is incredible. That carries a 92% credibility factor. So we're in a day and age when people listen to people. No longer do they believe the marketing stuff. They before you go to a movie, you go to Rotten Tomatoes to see if it's any good. Before you go to the restaurant, you go to Yelp to see if it's any good. Before you go to Five Guys, you find out if it's, oh yeah, you got to get the peanuts. And by the way, Five Guys, even after the meal, they play into this because they could serve their hamburger in a white paper bag. No, they serve it in a brown paper bag with the French fries leaking onto the bag. So when you look at the bag, you say, this is what I came for. Those French fries are bad for me. Aren't we glad we're here? You know? And so they got this relationship down. I was sitting one day looking at Five Guys, and they don't have garbage cans that somebody comes out and opens the door and drags the bag across the lobby. They say, we've got a relationship with our customer, and they expect, and so Five Guys has a whole garbage can on wheels, and they wheel it out, clean it out outside, and then they wheel it back in because it's about this 40-20-40 thing. Say, how do I take this whole relationship and stretch it out?
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, a whole new perspective when I go to, I think I'm going to go with Five Guys tonight. I'm going to have to go check it out. It's been a while since I've been there, but I do recall all of that experience when you mentioned it. I haven't been there a long time, but I do recall that. And it is interesting. It's the pre-sell and the post-sell, if you will. And I don't know if you even want to use the word sell, but it is pre and post. Sandwiched in the middle is your message. And I think that's powerful. So you're about to put something else there on your head. What was that one?
And to your point, you say, I'm going to go there tonight, because what happens is competition is the best of. So for an example, if you go to Disney is incredible at the relationship marketing stuff. I mean, incredible. And so you go to Disney to steal ideas. I mean, Disney is phenomenal at this whole stealing the ideas thing. I lost my other Disney hat. But the point being is, if you're going to go to Disney, you want to steal things. At Disney, if you go to Disney, and I love this story. My little brother told me this story. Disney has these cruise lines, and they have outside rooms and they have inside rooms. And the more expensive rooms are the inside rooms. And I said to my brother, what are you talking about? He says, well, on the outside rooms, you look out the window and there's this view of the ocean. But on the inside room, you walk in, and over the bed, there's a portal. But the portal is a video screen. And so what happens is, at certain times a day, on your inside room, on this round portal, a Disney character shows up in the screen, and they talk to your kids in your cruise room. All you know is you paid 15 grand to take your kids on this cruise across the Caribbean, and you're stuck in the room because of Crush the Turtle coming on. And your kids are staying in the room because they want to see the Tangled character. And they charge extra for a subpar relationship. Amazing. Amazing.
It is amazing. It really is. You, in this little book, you did this quite a while ago, back in 2009, Spontaneous Combustion. It's kind of a little workbook. Some really good stuff. By the way, I love your titles. You know, you're the charisma consultant. You got the book out, Business Charisma, Spontaneous Combustion. I mean, you kind of pull people in with some of the wording that you use, which I think is really cool. There's something that I was browsing through this, and I like to underline stuff when I read it. There's something really caught my eye, and I wanted to make sure I asked this question or have you expound on this. With the arrival of business at hyperspeed and the quick availability of information, business will have to change from the past. Now, keep in mind, you wrote this in 2009. I mean, there's been a lot of change since even when you wrote this. Business will have to change from the past. Today's customer senses manipulative selling. And I think all of the listeners would agree with that. We're all consumers. We all buy stuff. We're all pitch stuff. And we definitely sense manipulative selling today, probably more than we ever have. They move away and take their dollars with them. Now, here's the line. Scarcity is no longer the thing of value. The new value is in relationships and connections. Can you expound on that? I love that line. Scarcity is no longer the thing of value. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, in the past, we were valued by what we know, and we no longer are valued by what we know. We're valued by the questions we know to ask. Because the fact of the matter is,
the salesperson is not valued by what they know. So today, the consumer's valued by what they know, but the salesperson is no longer valued by what they know. They're valued by what they ask, is what you said.
Right.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify.
So let's go back to that subject about my doctor or my lawyer. When you go to your doctor, before you ever get there, you've researched what's ever wrong with you. And so we've got malpractice all over the place today because people know the answers. Well, so you know the answers. The answers are available everywhere. Anybody that's got one of these knows the answers. Mm-hmm. And so no longer can you sell based on what you know. You've got to sell based on your relationship with the person who is the customer. It's not about selling, it's about facilitating. And facilitation requires you to think differently than if you're out to sell something. At one point, I had 60 buyers that reported to me. $125 million worth of inventory that we had to control. And so I saw these sales guys calling my buyers all the time. And I thought, ask the question. Quit regurgitating information. Ask the question. And so today, authenticity requires us to ask questions of the customer to find out where they're at, what their passions are, their priorities, whatever they're focused on. Because there's a great movement right now about stories. That if you can't relate what you do in the story format, you'll just evaporate in the mind of the customer. And in stories, we forget that in this story, we are not the hero. The customer is the hero. Mm-hmm. And the customer has a problem. And so they go to Yoda. And Yoda is the facilitator of some magic thing, some force to help you overcome your problems. And so when we don't put the customer, and so scarcity is not as important as the relationship with the customer. We're thinking.
Okay, so you've been teaching this for a long time. I've been teaching it for a long time. And here we are, 2019 now. It's more and more and more this way. because the more you have internet and access to information like we do, and heck, not only can you look up what the product is and all the features and benefits of the product, you can actually look up what the customers are saying about the product and how it's and comments coming from people that already bought from. I mean, so it's not only can you capture the information about it, but also the experience that other buyers have from it before you ever talk to somebody who might represent the product. And so relationship more and more and more and more important. But don't you find it interesting that even you were preaching this in 2009, 10 years ago. It's 10 years later with massive change in technology that further illustrates the importance of relationship in business. But yet you and I are still out teaching like crazy the importance of focusing on the relationship and not the sell. Why is it so hard for people to catch on to this?
Well, and you look, I was thinking about what are the parts of time travel? In a relationship with your kids, with your spouse, with a customer that you've got a strong relationship, there's an element of time that occurs. See, let's take kids for a second. We have these kids, and one comedian said, he said to his son, if you don't wise up, I'll kill you and make another one look just like you. You know, but these kids, we have this long-term investment with, that they're here today and they're here 10 years from now. And we know that if we don't teach them to correct something today, we'll have to teach them in 10 years. And the cost of teaching them that in 10 years is going to be 10 times greater. Yeah. You address it earlier, the cost is less. But in the fact is, in all great relationships, there's an element of time. See, we were just talking about this a couple of hours ago. I told somebody, the president of Harley Davidson said, the government thinks we make motorcycles. He said, we don't make motorcycles. Make it is a way for a 42-year-old accountant to get dressed up in black leather and go terrorize a small town on the weekend. Yeah. And so people don't buy Harley Davidsons because they want to go to a different point in time. Back to Disney. We don't go to Disney because we go to Disney because we want to transport ourselves in time. And so relationships have this element of time in them. In fact, you know, you talk about stories of building a relationship with the customer. And in all those cases, the customer wants to see themselves at some future. We don't buy tires to own tires. We buy tires to go somewhere. And that's a future date. And so we talk about we. I have been send out cards for 10 years. I have this many clients. They don't care. That's the stuff your English teacher wants you to talk about. I, me, we. They want to hear what you're going to do for them, you, your. And that's a time travel. When you change your language to you, your, you take them to a different time.
Interesting. So in the pre-show, we kind of were talking a little bit back and forth, and you've done a lot with some big businesses, American Express, some big business local here in the state of Utah. We both actually live in the state of Utah. And you mentioned that you recently did some consulting work with a small city, Harriman City. Harriman actually is a city, a neighbor city to my city. I'm from Riverton City. You just did some consulting for Harriman City. I'm just anxious. I'm curious. What did Harriman City want to learn from you?
Well, they got people that are doing well in their city. They have businesses that are down the street that are struggling. And they had heard me talk about building relationships. And they said, could you come work with our business? A workshop for their larger businesses, and said, come in, Kordell, let's have you. It used to be, I remember back in the 1980s, 1990s, IBM did a thing that said one dissatisfied customer will tell 26 people. Well, today a dissatisfied customer will tell thousands.
That's right.
Because they just Twitter, hit a tweet and go out to the top. And so Harriman is saying, how do we in fact, I just read this is amazing. The amount of information that mankind is generating is doubling every 12 hours. Wow. 12 hours.
It's crazy.
World.
Crazy.
Can you keep up with information? You can't keep up when the information is doubling every 12 hours.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In this day and age, you don't have relationships, you are hosts. And so it's about getting over yourself. And if you're an extrovert, shut up. And if you're an introvert, learn how to ask questions to get them talking about their world and their passion.
Well, I'll tell you, you're on a roll. You're on a roll when you start talking that stuff, and you really bring out the importance of relationship at such a big level. And it's just so important that we all understand that in everything that we do. So we always like to end this show by having basically to have you take the floor. You've been gracious enough to answer several of my questions, a lot of impromptu questions. But I always like to end the show by giving you the floor and just share with our audience any golden nuggets directly from you, anything that you would like to discuss that you feel would be beneficial for the educational process of our listeners. The floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead.
I grabbed a couple of hats off of her. I married a woman who does not like a Coca-Cola. She likes Pepsi. And she will drive 20 minutes to get a Pepsi because she says there's a difference between Pepsi and Coke. The irony is the best tasting cola, scientifically, the best tasting cola is not available for purchase. And so I ask people, which one's the best? And they'll say Pepsi, they'll say Coca-Cola. That follow these people, they're not always the best people. And so when you start talking about building a relationship, people will buy from somebody they like. So whether it's Coca-Cola or John Deere, I mean, here's this brand that gets a premium. And it's a bunch of farmers, and they love this because of what it represents. And so the question is, what do you steal? I mean, if you look around, there are all sorts of examples of great organizations that have trained us how to make themselves charismatic, to where there's no substitute for that product. When you're charismatic, there's no substitute. Now, just one last thing. So I've studied charismatic organizations, but we could do a whole nother podcast on what makes a person charismatic. Because if you ask 10 people, we got Cody on and he's charismatic. I mean, you meet him, he's charismatic. And what makes companies charismatic? I mean, we showed this. What makes an organization charismatic, but what makes an individual charismatic? And there's about 60 things you can do as a person to become more charismatic. And one of those is the one that we referenced earlier, is you got to be authentic. I mean, if you really don't care about these people and you send them a card, the card's going to have no effect. But if you're authentic and say, we had a great conversation, and I look forward to meeting you again, they know that. They sense that. Absolutely. And that authenticity is actually part of charisma. You can't say, I'm going to be charismatic. People give you that and say, that person is charismatic. They assign it to you. And it comes from authenticity and really caring. So.
Excellent stuff. Well, there you have it, my friends. Mr. Kordell Norton, author of Business Charisma. You can find it on Amazon. Highly encourage you to get that, learn how to be more charismatic, how to be more caring, more loving, more nurturing, be engaged in creating relationship in your personal life and in your business. And I just appreciate all that you do, and we've learned so much from you today. And we look forward to seeing you. You know, we'd like to have you come out to some of our live events. So we'll get we'll get with you to see if we could get you to come to some of our live relationship marketing seminars, different things that we do around the world. So thanks again, my friend, and best wishes to you and all that you're doing out there.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So there you have it. That's another amazing episode of our Relationship Marketing Podcast. Please make sure you stay tuned. Every single week, we're going to be coming out with other guests on the subject of sales, marketing, customer support, customer service, you name it. We're going to talk about it. Relationship marketing at its very best. A lot of personal development gurus will come out on how to create relationship with self, how to create personal brands, how to do those things, how to celebrate your own life, take what you're passionate about and go out and create a brand around your passion, and make a difference in the world and celebrate other people for doing the same. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Take care now.
If you have enjoyed this episode of the Relationship Marketing Podcast with Cody B, be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a review so that together we can get this message, The Power of Human Connection, out to the world. You can find Cody's new book, The Power of Human Connection, on Amazon or the Send Out Cards gift store.